Hello, grade 12 students. In this video, we're going to talk about our new lesson, the oogenesis. What is the oogenesis? What are the different stages? And what happened during the oogenesis? First, let's start with the definition of the oogenesis. Oogenesis is the process where the mother cell of gametes, which is diploid, it's 2N, will give rise to the haploid female gamete, the egg cells, which are 1N, they are haploid. So, oogenesis, it's the process where the mother cell of gametes, they are diploid 2N, they give rise to the haploid female gametes, the egg cells 1N. This process takes place inside the ovary, starting from the fetal life until the menopause. Okay, so the menopause is the stage where there is no production of the egg cells. So this stage is known in Arabic as sin Meiosis. So the menopause, it's the process where there is no production of the egg cell. So let's repeat. Oogenesis is the process by which the mother cell of gametes, which is diploid 2N, gives rise to the haploid 1N gametes. These are the egg cells. This process takes place in the ovaries, starting from the fetal life till the menopause. The mother cell of gametes is 2N, quantity DNA 1Q, are called the oogonia. So this is the definition of this process. This is the definition of oogenesis. Stages of oogenesis, we have different stages. We have first the oogonium, the mother cell 2N. It gives rise to the primary oocyte that is breasted in prophase 1. We're going to talk about this in details. All of this before birth, childhood, they are inactive. From puberty to menopause, primary oocyte undergoes meiosis 1 to give secondary oocyte and first polar body that dies, and then secondary oocyte arrested in metaphase 2 undergoes ovulation, and then we have the completion of the meiosis 2 only if fertilization occur to give the zygote and the second polar body. By this process that shows the follicular development, it shows the process which is called follicular genesis. So the development of the follicles. First we have the primordial follicle, then we have the primary growing with, we have mature, Graafian follicle, and the rupture, and we have the corpus luteum. We're going to talk about this in details. Let's start with the phases of or the stages of oogenesis. First stage or first phase is called the multiplication phase. What happens during this phase? During the multiplication phase, the number of oogonia is amplified, increase highly in number by the process of meiosis to produce several oogonia. Each of these oogonia will have 2N chromosomes. Each is made up of one chromatid, so 2N, 1Q. So the first phase in the oogenesis is called the multiplication phase, where the number of oogonia is multiplied, is doubled or duplicated, increased by the process of mitosis to produce several oogonia. Each of these having 2N chromosomes, each is made of one chromatid. Growth phase. Growth phase is called the interphase. Is the phase of the development, enlargement. So the oogonia will give rise to cells that are larger in size. These cells, they are known as oocyte 1, or they have other name, they are called primary oocytes. They are 2N, 2Q, 2 chromatids per chromosomes. So this process is called, or this stage is called the growth phase. Growth, where the development of the cell occur, and we have the development of the cell and the enlargement of the cell. Let's move to stage number 3, or is the phase number 3. Here we have the meiosis. Meiosis 1 will start, but it will be blocked at prophase 1. All these events, they occur in the fetal life, and only in the fetal life of the female. They start there and they end there. So meiosis 1 will start and will be blocked at prophase 1 through the fetal life of the female. At birth, a girl will have all of her to be gametes. All of them, they will be present in her ovaries as oocytes 1 that are blocked at prophase 1. This will be the case from birth until a couple of days before a girl reaches the puberty and hours before the first ovulation. So this meiosis 1 will start, will be blocked at prophase 1. They occur during the fetal life, will start there and will end there. Will have oocytes 1 blocked at prophase. This from birth until a couple of days before a girl reaches puberty and hours before the first ovulation to occur. And here in this slide, we're going to talk about ovulation. Ovulation that occurs at the day 14 of the female menstrual cycle. Ovulation is the name of the process that occurs once every menstrual cycle. So this is ovulation that occurs once every menstrual cycle at day 14. When hormone changes, they can trigger an ovary to release an egg where the follicle it was ruptured. So we have primary follicle first, then we have secondary, and we have tertiary and Graafian follicle. Graafian that rupture at day 14 to give the egg. This is called menstruation. When then we have the early corpus luteum, the corpus luteum, and then the corpus albicans. We're going to talk about them later on. So this is ovulation. Ovulation is this process that occurs once every menstrual cycle at day 14, and then the hormonal changes will trigger the ovary to release an egg. Hours before the first and every ovulation, oogenesis will resume, will continue, where a group of oocytes 1 will resume their meiosis 1 activity since they were blocked. They undergo a full meiosis 1. They complete prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase 1. Then they proceed toward meiosis 2, the equational division, which is called. And then they stop at the metaphase 2 of meiosis 2. The result from each primary oocyte is a secondary oocyte. So each primary oocyte will give a secondary oocyte. The secondary oocyte is called oocyte 2, 1N, Q, 2 chromatids per chromosome, and we have the first polar body is going to be released. So as I said, hours before the first and every ovulation, oogenesis will continue, will resume after it was blocked or stopped at the meiosis 1. It will go a full meiosis 1 process, and it will proceed toward meiosis 2 and will stop at metaphase 2 of meiosis 2. The end result from each primary oocyte is a secondary oocyte 2, 1NQ, 2 chromatids per chromosome, and the first polar body. Please here kindly note that oocyte 2 is the gamete that will be released when ovulation is due. This oocyte, which is oocyte 2, secondary oocyte, should wait in the upper third part of the fallopian tube. If no fertilization occurs within about 24 to 48 hours, this egg cell will degenerate and descend into the uterus. So you have to know that oocyte 2 is the one that will be released when ovulation is due. This oocyte 2 should wait in the upper third part of the fallopian tube. If there is no fertilization, within about 24 to 48 hours, this egg cell will degenerate and will descend into the uterus. Only if fertilization occurs. We're going to go to the differentiation. Only if fertilization occurs. Differentiation. Oocyte 2 will continue the meiosis 2 after it was blocked at metaphase 2. It undergoes anaphase 2 and telophase 2 to give a cell, when it's penetrated with the sperm, it will be called the ootid. Ootid 1 and 1q, 1 chromatid per chromosome. This ootid will eventually mature into the ovum, which is 1 N, 1q, 1 chromatid per chromosome. So differentiation. This only occurs, oocyte 2 will resume meiosis 2 only if fertilization occurs, and will undergo anaphase 2, telophase 2 to give the cell which is called ootid, which once penetrated with the sperm cell from the male. Then this ootid will mature into the ovum and would be 1 N, 1q, 1 chromatid per chromosome. Note as oogenesis will start in the ovaries, but it ends in the oviducts. Pay attention to this note. Oogenesis starts in the ovaries, but it ends in the oviduct. So this is the process of follicular genesis. We have the primary follicles, the secondary follicles, primary, secondary, the Graafian follicle, where the rupture will occur, and the release of the egg. Okay, so this is the zona pellucida, the covering that cover the cell here. Prophase 1 at rest, then germinal vesicle breakdown. We have metaphase 1, anaphase 1, telophase 1, and then metaphase 2, and so on. So this is the process of follicular genesis. Since birth, oocyte 1 will be wrapped in simple layers. These layers of epithelial cells, they are referred to as follicles. So oocyte 1, since birth, they are wrapped, they are surrounded, they are covered by a layer of epithelial cells. These are called follicles. So they are referred as primordial follicle. Primordial follicles starting from puberty, about 3 to 4 months after the first ovulation. These follicles will grow in size. So the primordial follicles will grow in size and they become what's known by the primary. So first we have primordial, then we have the primary follicles. Days before the ovulation, 10 of these primary follicles will continue their development and they will give the secondary follicles. Among these 10, only one and only one of these follicles will progress and it will develop into a tertiary follicle. It's called a cavitary follicle. So let's repeat this. Follicular genesis. Since birth, oocyte 2 will be wrapped, will be covered, will be surrounded by epithelial cells. These are called follicles. These are referred to the primordial follicles. Starting from puberty, after before about 3 to 4 months before the first ovulation, these follicles will grow in size and they acquire characteristics that are different from the primordial. These are referred to as the primary. Days before the ovulation, only 10 of these will continue their development and they gave what's known by the secondary follicles. These follicles, only one, the best one and only one of these secondary follicles, which is the best one, the optimum conditions that are found in the best will develop, will progress, and will form what's known by the tertiary follicle. This is the process of follicular genesis. Everything genesis is related to the production. So follicular genesis is the generation or the production or the let's say the manufacturing of the follicles. So first we have primordial follicles first. About 3 to 4 months before the first ovulation, these grow in size and acquire more characteristics. They become the primary. Then 10 of these follicles will continue their development, become secondary, and the best will develop to be the tertiary and the cavitary one. Let's continue with the process of follicular genesis. We said that only one of these 10 follicles will be the best one and will continue. Why? What will happen for the other nine follicles? The other nine follicles, they will degenerate and will die. Once at this stage, ovulation will be due, and the 14 days is like a bell. A bell would ring. Ovulation will be due in 14 days. The oocyte present in the cavitary follicle will resume meiotic activity to produce oocyte 2, the secondary oocyte. Simultaneously, as the oocyte is growing, the follicle will mature into a fully blown Graafian follicle. So you have to know that the other 9 follicles will degenerate and die. Ovulation will be due in 14 days. Oocyte 1 present in the cavitary follicle will resume meiotic activity to produce oocyte 2. Oocyte is growing, the follicle also is mature into a fully blown Graafian follicle. On ovulation day, on day 14, what will happen? Graafian follicle will rupture and it will release its content, which is oocyte 2, where? Into the oviduct. Upon reaching this stage, the follicular phase will end and the Graafian follicle will become what's known by the corpus luteum, or what's known by the yellow body. So the ruptured Graafian follicle, when the oocyte 2 is released into the oviduct, the follicular phase, as we said, will end. The ruptured Graafian follicle will become the corpus luteum, which is known by the yellow body. This corpus luteum has an important role for preparation of the uterus to welcome the baby by producing the hormones estrogen and progesterone. This is where we study the luteal phase, and we will talk about this later. If fertilization occurs, the corpus luteum will survive up to 3 months of pregnancy and will later become the corpus albicans, which is known by the white body, which will eventually degenerate. So, if fertilization occurs, the corpus luteum, the yellow body, will persist for about 3 months of pregnancy and will later on become the corpus albicans, the white body, and also will degenerate. While if fertilization doesn't occur, the corpus luteum will directly become the corpus albicans that will later degenerate. So the difference between these, if we have fertilization, the corpus luteum will persist for about 3 months during pregnancy and then will transform, or it will become the corpus albicans, the white body, to eventually degenerate. While if no fertilization occur, the corpus luteum will directly become the corpus albicans that will degenerate. This is the process of the follicular genesis, and we have primary follicle, primordial first, primary, secondary, tertiary, and cavitary, and we have the Graafian follicle where the rupture and the release will occur at day 14, which is due to ovulation. Okay, here we have the yellow body, and we have finally the menstruation. So the cycle of the female changes about 28 to 35 days. Okay, we have here the follicular phase, the follicles, while we have the luteal phase. Here we have the oogenesis versus the follicular genesis. Multiplication, growth, beginning of the first meiotic division, puberty, maturation and differentiation. Secondary follicle, primordial will give primary, secondary, cavitary, and the Graafian follicle. ovulation, oocyte 2 survive 24 hours without fertilization. If fertilization occurs, have the release of the second polar body, fertilized ovum, and then we have the embryo which moves to the uterus, while the yellow body will persist for about 3 months during pregnancy, will persist for about 3 months, and without pregnancy, the the yellow body will be transformed into white body and will degenerate immediately. Okay, so this is the oogenesis versus the follicular genesis. Okay.